I thought it was good.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
We're going to get started here. Welcome. Welcome to our friends online from our other Wisconsin and Minnesota chapters. We're glad to have you here tonight. This is going to be fun and exciting. I'm going to keep it short and kind of generic from our intro, but if you'd like to advance the next slide, I'm Jean Seeley. I am the Lacrosse Rochester chapter president, and we have our agenda. We're going to the next slide. And then Tiffany is our newly elected president-elect. She's sitting here in the room. So one more year with me as a president, and she's learning the ropes. We've got others presidents on probably online, and I love working with you guys and seeing you guys at LIM. So thank you for joining us. Next, please. All right. It says Lacrosse Rochester, but this is true for everybody. There are so many opportunities within each of your chapters to come and volunteer and be a part of the community, whether you have 2 hours to volunteer or you have 50. It doesn't matter. We can use your help. There's always something that you guys can come and do and help us with. So I'm leaving it generic. These are all your benefits plus all the PDUs that you can earn to help you keep your PMP active. I have to thank our sponsors for Lacrosse Rochester because this is who really makes this happen, made this event happen, as we didn't ask for any fees from anybody to attend. So we've got UW Platteville, who's one of our key sponsors down in Platteville, Wisconsin. And then one more. We have St. Mary's up in Minneapolis area. So thank you to both of you for sponsoring us and being with us. I know at least St. Mary's is a sponsor to one other chapter. I suspect Platteville is as well. So thank you. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to our VP of events for Rochester, and she's going to do the last few slides before our speaker.
Great. My name is Chris Colson. I'm VP of events for Rochester, and I'm just going to go through the membership slide just quickly here. Right now, we're sitting at 290 members. And then we also give a shout out to our new chapter members. We have 4 of them listed there. So if any of you happen to be on, thank you for joining our chapter. Want any additional information, we've got the QR code there for you. Just a couple of events coming up that you're aware of. We have our annual business event coming up in May. That's on the 21st. We have a June networking over coffee and lacrosse. So definitely join us there. That'll be on June 10th from 12 to 1 at Bean Juice Coffee. And then we also are going to be doing a June networking event in Rochester. That'll be on, it's a Thursday, June 18th. So for those of you that are familiar with Rochester, that's also our weekly Thursdays downtown. So there's music, vendors, tons of stuff going on. So come and join us for a couple hours and then go visit the rest of the that's going on downtown. I have a little bit different introduction that's up there. It is hard to read. But anyways, I have to say first, I actually have had the opportunity to work with Terri in the past. So to be standing here talking, thinking about for many years, it's been 15 plus that we worked together, late 90s, early 2000s. So longer than that, I guess. So never would have thought back then when we were at committee meetings together that we would be standing here having this. So it's a special opportunity for me to be able to. So she has been actively involved in PMI for over 20 years and is currently serving her 2nd term on the PMI Board of Directors. She spent the majority of her career at Mayo Clinic in various senior leadership roles, managed several large enterprise-wide initiatives, and established the Mayo Clinic Enterprise Portfolio Management Office, what we call the EPMO. Since her retirement, Terri is spending time with her family, traveling and volunteering with PMI. So welcome, Terri.
Yes. You know, if you added up all those years, it adds up to a lot, as you can probably imagine. and it does go fast. But you know, as I'll be talking about here, I want to first of all say thank you to all of you here in the room, but also all of you joining remotely. You know, having worked in Mayo, of course, you know, I've got residency or had worked or lived for a long time in Rochester, but I want to tell you, all of you from Wisconsin, I'm currently a Wisconsin resident of the Rice Lake area. So I kind of go between the two. Yep. So I'm cover both states, but so glad to have you join. And it truly is a privilege to be here. The journey goes fast. And I'm actually amazed that I'm standing here as a member of the PMI board, you know, chatting with you, because I never even knew what PMI was, you know, when I started doing my first projects. And to think that of all of the things that happened and transitioned over all of these years to bring me here. But I'm so excited about this and the profession and PMI and what it's done for me personally, professionally, and what it does for so many people, you know, around the world. I've learned so much and met so many incredible people, you know, including all of you in the room and so many others. But when, you know, Scott gave me the opportunity to pick a topic, I thought, wow, you know, because I kind of coerced him. I said, you know, I'd really love to do something for the chapter, because then I don't have to travel anywhere with PMI. I can just be in my hometown. But he gave me the opportunity to select a topic. And I thought one of them I'd really love to share is what I've learned about PMI, what I wish I knew about PMI when I was, you know, in the chapter. I mean, there were so many things going on that you just don't know how it all works and how it's evolved. And as Chris mentioned, I served a term back in 2017, 18, 19, and then 2020 hit, and that kind of, you know, working for Mayo, that kind of threw things into a little bit of a tizzy, as you might imagine. And so I had to step back from this, but wanted to come back, and really fortunate to have come back and be elected by the members, you know, for the second term. But it's interesting, it's kind of like this time warp, because things that were going on in my first term and we were just starting and trying to do within PMI, and then all of a sudden you kind of go forward another 5 or 6 years and go like, wow. I mean, look where things are today. And that's really what I want to share with you today, because I'm excited about it. And I hope I can share some things they're learning, because there's so many things that so many people, you pick up bits and pieces, but just sharing the story a little bit more. So I call it the evolution of PMI and PPM. And don't be surprised, I'm going to probably use a lot of this in future presentations, because I really like the way this came together. So you're my, you know, my guinea pig audience, you might say. But really talk about the past, the present, and the future. I mean, and then talk about resources. I mean, there's so much out there. And I was at an event in Denver a couple of weeks ago, and I was really surprised how much some of the members there didn't know about what was available just inside conversation. So I thought, okay, I'm going to fix that, or try to, with this group and with others going forward, so you can see all of what's out there. Because the more you know, the more it can help all of you in what you're doing. But first of all, and I know those on a video can't answer this question, so we're going to go with the audience in the room. So how many have you been involved with PMI for over 20 years? Oh, got 3 hands. Okay, including mine. 10 or more. Okay, a few more hands.
Mine as well.
Okay, okay, good. 5 years or more? Okay, a lot more hands. Less than 5 years. Who's a newbie? Okay, great. And the reason I wanted to know that is because when you think of the past is going to mean different things to different people and what they've seen. How many of you have 1 or more PMI certifications? Pretty much everybody. Chris.
I know. Well, I guess, no, I should say that. I do have my.
Okay.
I forgot the other one.
No, and the reason I asked that one is that obviously the PMP is, you know, the one everybody thinks about, but you know, it's interesting how there's so much more that's available now than there was before, and how it all fits together. And the last question, how many of you have attended a PMI Global Summit or some other PMI event? Okay, fabulous. A lot of hands in the room. And if you haven't, you talk about a community of people from around the world, from so many different places coming together. It is so energizing to people who really get what we're doing and trying to do and willingly share their knowledge. And it's just a fascinating community and family, really. So I want to share a little bit more of, you know, that supports that. But before that, let me tell you about, you know, Chris covered a lot of my background, but a little bit more of my story. So I didn't start out in project management, because most people don't, at least back in the day. So I started out in finance and then added in IT, and ended up, you know, then of course, you know, any accountant from undergrad goes and gets their CPA, or, you know, or tries to. So I ended up working for Deloitte for a while with that. But then I got moved into Mayo, and in Mayo, that's where I switched into my IT side of things, because my husband was in finance, and back in the day, you couldn't be in the same department. So I thought, okay, I'll just pick this other one. And so went into IT and learned a lot there. It was kind of an interesting, you know, stories of IT back in the day. I mean, very different than today. But that actually got me into my first role in project management, because as I was moving around the organization, moved into an area that was moving from a very paper-based system into, you know, automated system, you know, and it wasn't working well. And so I got asked to say, well, you've got finance, you've got IT, I'm sure you can figure it out. And they just kind of threw me into it. No training, no education, nothing, no books to read, just, figure it out. And it was, that project and then a couple projects after that kind of followed that same mode of operation. And I'm going, this is ridiculous. All of these projects are getting started. They get 2 years down the road, they fail. I get asked to jump in and try to fix them. And it takes, a lot of effort, a lot of frustration, and no books to follow. And that's when I learned about PMI. And somebody said, well, have you heard about PMI? And I looked at the PMBOK and said, oh, this is the most boring book in the world.
Yeah.
What I started getting involved in PMI and went to a meeting and then got involved in the Global Executive Council because Mayo got asked to join that. All of a sudden I realized the wealth of information, the organizations out there, and that even though we were, I worked for healthcare, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were healthcare or biospace engineering or IT or whatever, or any place in the world, these same principles applied. And it was just like this light bulb went off and I thought, wow. And I learned so much about that. And really it was through that ongoing education, working with PMI, and then working with the leadership of our organization, put a proposal forward to our board of directors and we formed the EPMO. And that wasn't an easy thing. It started with me. And then I think it's grown a little bit. It's got its ups and downs. It's a challenging thing to do, but we formed an EPMO. And actually I led that, managed that for 10 years, and then stepped into another role with our laboratory systems, another huge department that was going through a lot of change and, reinvention and stuff, and formed, kind of did it. My really fun project was forming strategy management services that took not just the project management, but the whole strategic management framework from end to end. And I'd like to share that story about how it really started as just this novice, I don't know what I'm doing in project management, and you just kind of build and learn, and how I learned so much from others and from PMI and from so many of you, working together. It's really what that takes. So wherever you're at in your career, wherever organization, you definitely have that opportunity. So now, I am a member of the PMI Global Board of Directors, and I know there's lots of boards of directors at the organization. This is the one that's overall PMI, and we work with the executive team at PMI. And what you'll see here, I won't go through all the names, but you'll see there's a huge diversity on this group, and so much more than when I was on my first term. You'll see a couple of us with US flags, but otherwise, we've got Ireland, we've got South Africa, we have Argentina, Pablo from Brazil, Pablo's from Argentina, Danny is from Hong Kong, so they're from all over the place. But it's just this fascinating group of people. We all have the common mission of how to help the profession, help PMI grow, and really come together for that purpose. And again, the board switches out, we get new members, some people leave, some people come in every year. So the board's constantly changing and evolving. And we'll actually be 4 of our members will be leaving this year, and we'll get 4 brand new members next year. So we'll have that evolution again. So it's like a team that's constantly shifting, but it adds a lot of diversity, a lot of interest. But we all have the same goal. Great group to work with. So evolution overview. Let me kind of start with this. So why talk about evolution? Because, remembering the past is really helpful to seeing where you're at today and how far you've come, and then where things are going in the future. And if you think back to PMI being, formed 55 plus years ago now, so much has happened since then. And then what's our present state look like? What are we doing now? Are we even aware of all the things that are going on? And that's one of the things I want to share with you. But also we just recently at our March meeting had a strategic planning retreat there as well. So looking forward to where PMI is going to be going in the future. Exciting things there too. So let's go to a little bit more on the evolution. I found this slide and I thought it was interesting that if you think of the evolution of project management, PMI is kind of right in the middle there in 1969 when it was formed. And you can see Scrum and some of the other things out there too. But I thought it was very interesting. PMI and what happened at that time was such a pivotal point. And while many of these things still exist, PMI is probably the one part of this that's really grown exponentially over time because of the way we, not-for-profit and some of the things that we've done, and more to come. Again, it's not-for-profit focused on the profession and looking at different things. I thought it's always good to put a historical slide back in 1969. You might have seen some of these slides, how it was formed by a group of 5 individuals, that really just got together and recognized the need. And it's pretty fascinating to think about not just how that happened with project management, but probably other professions as well. Whether it's IT or accounting or the other things, but here to do that for project management, because it's so expansive. It covers so many different things, so many different industries, so many different, organizations. So, for them to start that small and then to grow to what it is, it's pretty amazing. I put this slide to show evolution again, and this is going to date myself. So over here on the far left, you'll see what's called a teletype machine. Anybody remember those? See one of those? Aside from in a museum? Okay, that was the first computer that I worked on in high school. So in the very, very first IT class back in high school. And the cool thing about that is it produces all these little dots that work great as confetti at football games. But so I started with that, punch cards, went through that era. But the reason I show this is that, look at all the things that have happened. And wherever you're at in that spectrum, it's changing pretty fast. And so a lot of people I know are been concerned about AI and what is this and what's it going to do to our jobs. Everything has changed our jobs. It's just really to show that, yeah, it kind of keeps changing. This is just a new change from my perspective, because I kind of still look back to that and go, wow, look at where we've come. So it's not something to be afraid of. It's just something, how do I learn more about it? How can we use and evolve with it? And again, it's going to be a big evolution because things are moving faster than ever. But if you think about, like I said, where you might have started in this evolution, it's going to keep growing. The other thing I like is this one, because this kind of shows another timeline, 1975. If you think of, everything paper-based, the Gantt charts and all of that, and I kind of grew up way back when and part of that era, moving to digital, but then now to move to AI augmented. And the augmented is a really important part of AI. AI can't really do anything on its own. It's really this human interaction. How many in this room have used AI? Yeah. How many who rely on it 100% to be totally correct? Okay, you get what I mean. So again, I think it's a tool that can help us do things faster in so many different ways. So it's pretty exciting where that's going. Again, more of the evolution. So really, just what are some of the big changes? We've gone from very paper-based, very manual, to automated. The projects I think that I started working on was replacing manual processes. Now projects, those are gone. There's hardly anything manual left. It's automated systems replacing with more automation, more integration, more complexity, more, intelligence built into them than ever before. And gone from the days when it was $1 million projects to the billion and $1 trillion projects. If you think about it. So the size, the scope, the complexity, all of these projects is changing, which means there's more need for professionals to do these. You just don't take somebody who happened to be coming from this area and move them in here with no training and throw them into a big, project anymore. You have to have training and skills. And then this was, we've all seen the t-shirt sizing, and I ran across a dozen different models of this. But one term that we're using at PMI now is the giga projects. And so I thought, okay, I need to understand better what a giga project is. And I just realized it's not the extra large, it's like the 4XL, so it's like the super big ones. And so I started saying, okay, well, what are some of the things that, and I'll have a slide later on of what that means too. The last thing is complexity. As I mentioned, the evolution of complexity from the days that you're replacing the standalone accounting system that to do something more automated to now a fully ERP system, with all the capabilities and interactiveness. It's huge. It's gone from, so many different areas, with security, with, accessibility, with mobile apps, all of the integration that takes there. So complexity of projects, again, another reason that project management needs to be a profession, and you need to continue to work on your skills, because these are getting harder and harder every year. Okay, so far so good. So PMI and PPM. So we're going to take a look at the past again. PPM, I remember the days where there really wasn't a profession. Aside from a PMBOK here or there, you might come across, the early projects I worked on, and looking at Steve, we probably ran across a few where everybody's doing it their own way. And, I remember it took me 3 months once to convince my team that we needed a risk report. and to summarize, I mean, things like that, or needed a schedule or a timeline. I mean, so there's some of the basics that we just think of right now, this, it wasn't a profession, it was all over the place. So with PMI, bringing those standards together, the training, all of us working together, in the same way with same terminology and same framework was absolutely instrumental, to my organization at Mayo, but also to many others, because it gets us all now, so many people, millions of people talking about the same thing in the same way. So what did the past look like and why did PMI work so well in that? First of all, there was a void. I think back in 1969, if it was anything like where I saw project management when I was starting to do it at Mayo, there was a void. I mean, it was just like there was nothing. It was hard to grab into anything. And these people realized that need. And so they recognized that, effective project management was a key to success. Otherwise, we were talking earlier, I mean, projects would go over budget over time. I mean, there was just never end. That was another thing we ran into a lot. So recognizing this as a profession and why there was a need for that. But again, it was established as a not-for-profit. I think that's really key. Not-for-profit then, not-for-profit now. It's about the profession. It's about how do we take what we can do and continue to progress the profession in the ways that the profession need it. And that's why members, volunteers, we hear from you and then constantly turning that into actions that'll support it. Again, just sharing some of that, across industries, independent chapters were formed. And I think this is really key. The chapters, and I was trying to get a little bit more on this about, where they first started and everything, but the chapter concept, if you think about it, started of course in the US, but quickly spread globally. So this just somehow, and I don't have all the history on that, but somehow really just expanded very quickly. And then the PMP certification came in, similar to, I always compare it to the CPA, really to certify that kind of what you're doing. It's giving you kind of that stamp of approval. But then, quickly became this international authority. So, I mean, to have something that grew that quickly, I mean, obviously filled a void that wasn't just in one area, but was global and really caught on quickly. So here's some stats I did get from PMI. I said, okay, members. So of course, the first members were the 5 founding people in 1969. But, within a year got to 100. And then 10 years later got to 1,000. And of course, we're at, I don't know, 1.6 or something now. So a million. So it's grown quickly. First chapter established in Houston, Texas, that I did not know. And then, first, let's see, international ones in the late 80s at West Germany and South Africa, which is kind of interesting. And again, chapters have grown and we're now over 300 chapters. First PMP was 1984, which I thought was interesting. Eric Jeanette, okay. And then, you can see where it's grown by 100, and even more, and then reached the first 1,000 in 1994. So that first few years actually took a while, for it to catch on. So that's why when I go to the present and share some slides, it's really, and this is, I think, where I kind of caught in, there is this kind of, what do they call, a very huge uptick when I think all of a sudden projects started getting more complex.
Terry, I have to add to that if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Somebody else can jump in like I just did, but sorry. So I came to Mayo from IBM in 2005 and 2006, and it was the wild, wild west. But you were just starting to establish the EPMO and PMPs. There was that uptick at Mayo,
Yep.
where very quickly there was 100 PMPs.
Oh, yeah.
And then we started to have some rigor.
Yeah.
And I think that you really helped establish that at Mayo. Otherwise, it was a wild, wild west, and finally got some methodology in there.
To be honest with you, it was kind of being in the right place at the right time. A little bit of that, just to build on that story, as I was working on the Magic project at that time, which was, yeah. If anybody remembers that, yeah, it was really trying to bring all these systems together, and it was the hardest project, and enterprise-wide and everything. And we just happened to have a new CEO or CAO at the time. Shirley Weiss came in, and she's going, "How do we do this better?" And I said, "I've been hearing about this and researching it." And I sat down with her, and she goes, and 5 minutes later, she goes, "Write me a paper on this," and that's what went to the board. And it was just at the right time, right project, person, and it kind of took off from there. But, you know, the first thing is to get, I realized everybody certified, including myself, which was,
Sure.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
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 I heard of this Terri Knudson and this magic project but I didn't know that conversation happened.
That's a whole nother presentation about how not to do project management, by the way. So I did a lot of big projects before I learned actually how to do big projects. But you know, the present really, it's recognized a profession, you know, as Steve was saying too, and I think a lot of organizations, they require the certification. Mayo, no, you can't get to a certain level without a PMP. That's still in place, you know, critical to project success. You know, that was the other thing. Once we established it, I think there all of a sudden it was filling another void that organizations are like, okay, why didn't we do this before? And why don't we have more project managers? And people wouldn't start, some of our sponsors, our key sponsors wouldn't start a project without a project manager. So you went to the kind of the whole other way. But, you know, it was really based, we said, you know, what are you going to base it on? And, you know, there's a lot out there. And I thought, you know, trying to give a little bit of thought on this, I said, PMI, they're out there nationally, they're out there internationally. Why would you go with somebody else? You know, let's just go with the one that you know is going to be there for the long term. And really that made all the difference to us, you know, because you based it on a global authority. It wasn't Terri Knudson saying this, that wasn't going anywhere. But when I said, oh, PMI, and they've got HP, and they've got Boeing, and they've got, you know, all these other organizations, I name drop everybody you could imagine over and over again. And that made the difference. Today though, you know, one of the things I love is this new purpose that we've got, because it's changed over the years. And when I was on the board the first time, we came up with something totally different. But when I came back, this is what it was there. And I really like it because it ties in two things. It's about maximizing project success. We're all trying to be successful, but it's about something more than that. It's about trying to do something that's going to make a difference. And that's what I found in a lot of projects I worked on. It was like, what really motivated me and motivated the team wasn't that, okay, we're just trying to get this done on time and on budget. It's like, we're going to do something to make a difference. You know, we're going to implement a new health record, electronic health record, or we're going to implement this new system that's going to bring everything together and make it better for our patients and better for, you know, our organization. And so you think about the projects you're working on. How do you maximize success, but for the purpose? And I'll share a couple things on that as well, how to find your purpose. But again, global authority. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet Jim Schneider a couple of times. Absolutely amazing gentleman. He just passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But you know, he was just so down to earth. He never would have imagined it grown to what it is. But it wasn't about Jim. It wasn't about those five people. It was about really all of this community that comes together and understands the importance of this and adopts it and works together. That's really what it is. But it really is about advancing the profession, as I've mentioned several times. So again, a few things of note. Again, 770,000 members, you know, a lot of active certifications, trainers, global executive. But the thing I want to point out here was mentioned, you know, volunteers. This has grown probably by 50%. I think just like 4 years ago, this was at 12,000. This is at 18,000. There is so much cool stuff happening. We have more volunteers than we know what to do with, you know, at a global level, but it all starts here, you know, at these chapters to get engaged with the chapters, then the regions and the global, it all kind of works together. And so if you want to really see what's going on and be engaged in it, volunteer. I mean, my job is a 100% volunteer role. And I could tell people, I mean, now with what the board involves, it's like a full-time job. I'm volunteering for PMI, but it is absolutely fascinating. And what I really want to do now is motivate all of you and share with you some of the things I'm learning. I can't use it in my profession anymore, like I was when I worked at Mayo, but to share things to you that are going to be helpful to you in whatever you're doing. Okay, this is the strategic plan. I'm not going to go through this in detail. There's a lot there, and we're going to be revising this to some extent. But the key to this is really here, the current and aspiring project professionals. That's really the middle. But looking at things that have knowledge platforms, you know, really look at learning lifelong, but also the certifications, because how do you prove that you know what you're doing? And that's really the certifications and making it more of a higher level gold standard. So, you know, Pierre, who's our CEO, president CEO, he's very, very committed to all of this. And there's a lot of different projects going on. In fact, PMI has its own EPMO, by the way. Keep track of all the projects that they're doing. This is actually one of my favorite slides, because one thing that huge change since just a few years ago is if you think of all of the things PMI is trying to do, and then how we're not just trying to build it on our own, but really working with other organizations. And you'll see there's a couple that don't have arrows to them yet. Just wait, they'll be coming. But you think of Agile. I mean, remember the day when it's like, okay, PMI is just waterfall and Agile is all these other organizations. We were just talking about, obviously Agile is going through a bit of a change right now, but PMI, is in partnership with Agile Alliance, actually acquired them. And just last month came up with a new enterprise manifesto, if you haven't had a chance to see that. So agility is factored into all of this. Project Management Institute, I can never pronounce that right, but artificial intelligence, huge one, that's been out there. Green project management for sustainability ties directly into the PMBOK. Just acquired them a year ago and worked on them with the joint venture. The Global Alliance, PMO Global Alliance, that is one. I wish I had that playbook when I started the EPMO. It would have really helped. But I mean, it's really just this guide for PMOs and really tells the story and the life cycle of, which is just fascinating. Project Management Without Borders. I love this one. Grassroots effort, helping, non-government organizations around the world just through volunteering, through chapters, through members like yourself. It's just really heartwarming what that group's doing. And then the longest running is the PMI Educational Foundation, PMI EF, been around for 35 years, formed by Jim Schneider, and really works with, again, organizations, throughout the world, but really to train youth in project management skills and really change their lives for the better. So, I mean, a lot of social good types of things, but a lot of things for the profession. And there's, we'll be building this out over the next couple of years. So much more to come on that, but a lot of exciting things happening here, and it's all available always to members, and anybody else. So, so here's what I was trying to talk about PMP growth. As Steve mentioned, when we started forming the EPMO, it was like right here. And I thought it was a huge uptick there, into this area. Now it's just gone crazy. 1.6 million, certified PMPs today. So absolutely there's a need for it. Organizations are seeing a need. So. Okay, another one of my favorite slides. I just got this one from PMI and it's like, thank you. Because you hear about all these certifications. And I'm going like, can you just give me a slide that shows them so I can understand them? And this one, I kind of augmented it because I couldn't remember what all the initials were for. But I thought that the first one I think is kind of interesting is the core certifications, where you go from, the associate to the PMP, of course, program manager, portfolio manager, because you've got this kind of core that goes there. And then you've got these that are more for example, industry-based. I think I was just talking with someone about the construction one, but then you've got skills-based with scheduling, risk. Let's see, agile, and then agile, let's see, and business analytics, that's right. And then here is kind of where we got our newer ones. The one on AI. There's, I don't know how many courses out there right now. They're all online, all available to members. And I think you can even get their certification without a cost if you're a member. So we've actually had one or two of our board members do this. And I've got this on my to-do list because I thought, wow, AI wasn't a thing when I was doing my teletype thing, believe it or not. But in the PMO, I mean, the standards there, I know I've read through that in this one. And it's just really, they're really interesting reads. Go ahead.
Well, and you might be getting to this, but Pierre had mentioned how the change to the PMP and the PMI ACP specifically is going to be coming out over the summer. Could you much?
Actually not much. I just saw a little bit more on that. So I know they're changing the exam to some extent. And what they're trying to do is just be more progressive, but I'm not sure of the specifics of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know there are some specific changes to it, I think, just to make it easier. And one I'd heard, and again, this is just me, is I think Pierre mentioned that it was going to be, I mean, you don't have to go to a testing center for it anymore.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. And so different ways of doing that. And I think they were just trying to, again, try to make it more of a gold standard. So not try to test you. So do you know what the third word on page 165 is in the second paragraph, which is kind of what I went through a little bit, but really to test on the knowledge.
Sure.
And then I can't say much, but there is another certification that'll be coming. We were just working on that last week. That'll be coming to really just broaden it, because we realize the PMP is kind of your core, but really how for people who are managing, these bigger programs and everything else, you got these for your technical skills, but something more is beyond that too. So we're constantly looking at ways that people can certify themselves to prove their skills to their organizations and to others.
Great.
No, yeah, I wish I could speak a little bit more. Yeah. On that. I don't have the details of it.
So
Yeah, more to come. Yeah.
sneak peek.
So this is, really one of the slides I like, because I was telling them, earlier, is that I was, as a project manager, again, I was doing it by the seat of my pants, literally. I mean, you guys, and knocking my head into a wall a lot. And none of the projects that I had really were on time, cost, or scope. I guarantee it. I never met those. In fact, more often than not, I had to explain why we weren't meeting those. But the one thing I did like is and I know this looks more complex, but this is really what it was all about. It was really trying to get performance. It was trying to get quality, because the one thing I did stand by as a project manager said, especially at an organization when you're dealing with healthcare, I said, you don't put in it, you just don't put it in to meet a timeline. It's gotta work. And so it's really about working through all of this. And I really like this as a really more inclusive type of an approach as we think about it. And I like the idea of the sustainability in the middle of it too. And I'll talk a little bit more on that. But it's really about the value it's creating. It's not about just meeting a budget. So, okay, that brings us to the future. Okay, so future in the profession. I mean, obviously AI is going to be there. We know that. Organizational changes, every organization keeps going through change. Nothing stays static. And sustainability. And sustainability I put up here because, again, often we're speaking to international organizations. And believe it or not, there's a lot of places around the world that actually sustainability is one of their number one things they're trying to do. So different countries are way ahead of us on that. So it is a big, big thing. The PMI evolution though, too, I mean, you can see a lot of different things happening here. And so I'm going to cover some of those for your benefit today. Okay, AI. Again, we know AI is there. It's going to be there to stay. It's going to keep growing and evolving. There's so many different ways to use it personally, professionally. If you haven't had a chance, to figure it out, please jump in, take the courses, learn more about AI as you can, just practice with it. My husband, who is very, very, very non-technical, he's even using it with a little bit of help. But, it's kind of interesting to see when you start interacting with it. It's like, wow, he won't listen to me and take my advice, but if I ask AI, he'll listen. So again, just how to integrate all of this together and to really enable you to do what you're doing. PMI has done a lot of research on this. Obviously you need the data, if you're doing AI within your organization, you have data readiness, are the leadership prepared, is the board prepared? And are you looking at it for how to sustain things in the future, how you're going to be using it with the priorities and the processes and the procedures? But what they're trying to show here is that leadership, when surveyed, they know the importance of this. So this is definitely something that should be top on everybody's list. Organizational change. I think we all know change is constant. It's accelerating. It'll accelerate even faster with AI. We're seeing that already. And then agility becomes even more important these days. I mean, we need to be able to flex very, very rapidly in this world. Sustainability. This is probably one of my favorite slides. It's a sustainability, the 17 sustainability goals from the United Nations. And it's one that's been out there for several years. And it's really an imperative, like I mentioned, to countries around the world. I spoke in Malaysia last year, and it was like their number one thing. They wanted to learn about AI and sustainability and project management. And if you think about it, it's beyond, the impacts on our environment, it's critical to that, but sustaining growth while doing that. But the thing I like about this model, it's got so many different facets to it. And I think what we're going to realize is there's going to be an increasing demand for it, whether it's now or whether it's in the future. It's going to move in that direction. It's without a doubt. Regardless of what you think about it these days, there's going to be a need for this in projects. And one of the things that I was able to do, and this was kind of retrospectively, of course, is when I was doing that presentation, I actually thought of the projects that I did at Mayo. I said, they actually mapped into this. I mean, if you think about what you're doing, they had a purpose, but, like health and well-being or something like that, they all, or, innovation and you're making things better, think of the projects you have and how they can map into this, because it really provides it with more meaning. If you think about it, you don't have to be solving world hunger, for example, just one of them, but think of how what you're doing really has an impact on others. And it makes it very, very, very valuable that way. But even more so, again, some of the research that's been done shows that when you map your projects to one of the sustainability goals, whichever one it might be, there's actually greater probability of success. And I think what is there is that it's that people feel that you're doing it for more than, the money or because somebody said to do it. There's a value to it, to you intrinsically. Just like I said, with the projects that I did, proton beam was one of my favorite, proton beam accelerator. I wasn't motivated to get this big building built up with this radioactive equipment. What motivated me was it was saving people's life. It's treating cancer patients. And I still tingling right now because I think of every time somebody goes through there and rings the bell when they get done with their treatment and how they're expanded that center. And so think about the things you do and how it has an impact on those. That's what makes people motivated. That's what makes it a success. And it's part of these goals. So again, you can use these slides and borrow this anywhere. Giga projects. Okay, I had to actually look up what a giga project was because it kept getting mentioned by PMI and it's exceeding 1 billion. So actually we've had a couple of those at Mayo. We've got one that's in case you have to drive through 2nd Street these days, it's a multi-giga, it's a $6 billion project going on right now, reconstructing the entire downtown somehow. We'll figure that out in the few years from now. We'll see what it turns out to be, but it looks like it's pretty cool and a huge, huge project. But a lot of the gigas I found out are really in the Middle East. And so you can see, they've got a lot of growth and change there as well, with transportation, energy, urban development, so many things. And they've got a lot of money there and they're investing it in their infrastructure. So the giga projects actually are primarily there. On a side note, I was really looking forward to visiting some of the giga projects. I was on a plane heading to a board meeting on February 27th in Abu Dhabi. But when I got off the plane for my transfer flight, I was in London and something was on the news and I got on another plane and headed back to Minnesota. So I didn't quite get a chance to see the giga projects there. But yeah, so I'm again, there's a lot going on there and hopefully that will, continue into the future. Another big one, as we mentioned, project success is huge for, for all of us. We're all after project success. And I agree totally with PMI. It's not about the time, the cost, any of that anymore. It's really about value. Or what you're doing offering more value than the effort and expense. And I tied right into this. I really love this. But it comes down to your stakeholders, because if you work with any project and you have, more than one stakeholder, the perspectives are going to be all across the board. So how do you manage those perspectives as a project leader? How do you really own the project success? It's not just saying, well, I got it done on budget, but how do you really understand the business and feel, have that be part of, part of what you're trying to achieve? Continuously, look at the project parameters. That was probably my biggest mistake on Magic. We had set them up front, and then after the project got done, they said, well, what you do to compare to what we set up, 6 years ago, but have no clue. Where were they? But how do you, have those in front of you as a project leader? You really need to be thinking of that and communicating that all the way through. And then looking at things differently, looking at things, how to, really look broader than just the project, but the implications to the customers, the clients, the stakeholders, the community, the environment, so many other factors. More was introduced in 2024, and I believe they issued another paper 2025, and I think there's another one coming out in 2026. So they're building on this research to help us all learn how to do project success more successfully. Okay, so far so good. I got 15 minutes left, and I'm going to cover what I'm considering resources for your next steps. So these are things that I've found out there that I'm like, wow, I mean, you know, to be honest with you, there's so much out there. And the reason I put this section in is because, like I said, I've learned in talking to people that they might be aware of one thing or another. I'm going to give you kind of the whole kit and caboodle that I'm aware of. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them maybe not. So we'll go through these. First of all, there's a lot of research out there. There's partnerships, affiliations. I shared some of those, webinars, training, gold standards, chapters, membership, a lot of stuff. All you need to go out is the website. It has a huge array of information. So I'm going to start with, of course, our favorite, the PMBOK. And I actually, this is the first PMBOK I've got a copy of since I passed it way back when. And I found my old one today and I'm going like, what edition was I on? I was on the 3rd edition. So this is 8. So it's probably changed a bit. And I know Pierre is really, really proud of this one because it had more changes than any of the others. I mean, really looking at it differently with AI, with, more content, with more agility, those types of things. So a lot more in this one. So not that I've ever been a fan of sitting down and reading a PMBOK, but I'm looking forward to reading this one. Okay, another one is, they've got a whole lot of papers, a couple of different thought leadership papers out there on project success. If you've been to any event, they've had sessions where they're getting people to talk about what this project success means and trying that out and really capturing a lot of data from that. But I think there's a lot we can all learn because everybody's situation's different. So think about how to indicate project success, how to manage it within your own organization to get the value that you want. One of the things actually I should mention, I've got the QR codes up here. And so PMI assured me that these QR codes, if you take a picture of them, will take you to the location that these things are each on. So each one has their own QR code. So, and like I said, Scott mentioned that he'd have this available afterwards. So you can all do that as well versus taking photos right now. AI Essentials, this would be one for sure. I would recommend everybody looking at. I know they started with like 3 courses. I think they're up to 6 and they're continuing to add more as they're learning more. So there's a lot out there right now to really build the skills in that area. And Project Infinity, how many people have heard of this? Oh, quite a few. Okay, about half the room. Okay, so this is the AI system that PMI built. They built it just as kind of a prototype. But actually we're investing more into it to build it out further because again, there's so many AI tools there, but you could ask, Copilot to build you a charter. You have no idea what it's going to end up with. If you ask this to build you a charter, this is structured just for project management. And as you use it more, it's going to learn more. And again, available, free, online, to all members, has demos and all sorts of other information, and it's continually growing. So again, a lot of investment going into that because we realize these AI tools, they're going to be great for different things and there are going to be some that are generic, but some are going to need to be specialized. Copilot's not going to answer things about medicine or, bioengineering or certain things. So I think there's going to be this specialization. So PMI is going to own the space as it relates to PMI work processes and things that can help you do your projects more quickly. Oh yeah, it's on a mobile app now. I think they just started them. Yeah, they just got it on the mobile app too. I think that just started this year. Construction. So the one group at Mayo that I couldn't get quite brought into the whole project management, you guys know this one, was facilities. It's like, no, we do project management different. Even when I worked with them on a project, it was like totally different. So construction project management absolutely is its own beast. But, we've got construction management professionals that have created the standard, the training, the certification, so that, same as us as whatever project manager type you aren't just going out there without any training and saying, I just do project management. I mean, let's have some training, some, really education on that and something that certifies that, the different aspects to it. So it's getting going right now. And there's a lot of organizations very interested in this, but it's definitely a need. And I can foresee that they'll probably look at some other specializations for other indices that are maybe a little bit more in the future. Let's see. Oh, yes, green project management. So this has actually been out there for about 15 years. A gentleman, created this. It follows the PMBOK, and then he and PMI started a joint venture on this, and it's really delved in right into the standards and in the whole framework. What I like about this, when you read this, it's when you're trying to find ways that your project can be sustainable. I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't have any ideas that are just coming out and floating right there in front of me. When I read this standard, it's like, oh, it gives me like 12 different ideas. It's like, oh, 3 of these actually look pretty good. So it's not like it's a whole standard. It's basically giving you ideas on how to do sustainability while you're doing project management. Yeah, and so it's built in with this whole system of just different things you can do and think about and ask about and try to get your organization and your project to do. And it's every step of the way. And it's really just fascinating. Different things, some are simpler, some than others, but how to be sustainable in different ways. Another one is, again, the PMOs, near and dear to my heart, because PMOs, bring together project managers across organizations. And if you can learn how to create a PMO, no matter what size your organization, this is just a great opportunity to learn more about that. And again, one of the things I loved about this is just the life cycle. It really helped me understand that everything I was going through in forming the EPMO, it was normal. It wasn't just that, it happened. And every PMO is a little bit different, but it really helps to pull together a community of this. And Americo Pinto, who created this and is now part of PMI, fascinating speaker and knowledgeable expert on this, and amazing person, amazing context there. The manifesto, again, brand new. This is hot off the press last month, guys. And so this isn't about a new, agile manifesto. This is an enterprise manifesto. And so what PMI recognized, it's not about agility and how you do it in IT projects or software development or this part of the organization. You really have to be agile across the organization. So really took it up to the organizational level, which I really, really liked about this. But it's still tied to Agile Alliance. It's in kind of in joint sponsorship with theirs, you can see, but really how to build this enterprise level agility and use Agile throughout the organization. So I haven't read through all of this yet, but definitely on the track for that. Another one I wanted to bring up is just global events. So we've got a few coming up. The one in Lisbon, by the way, was supposed to be in Dubai. Guess what? That's not in Dubai anymore. There's other ones happening, but the one I really wanted to bring your attention to was the one here in Detroit. So this fall, let's see, it looks like the 21st and 24th of October. I mean, it's just like a couple hours away. This is going to be super close. And I know many organizations, many people say, well, my organization won't fly me to wherever, LA or Vegas or whatever, they sometimes have it. But I thought Detroit, I mean, so if you can make it, that again, great opportunity to learn so much more, because we're going to be so much further down the road on all of these types of things that I'm sharing with you today. And then last but not least, it's really about the community. As I mentioned, it's over 300 chapters, so many members, so many volunteers, worldwide. And I love this slide because it really does indicate how global this is. And you'll see I even put a little star over Minnesota and Wisconsin to recognize where we're at. But what's fascinating is, how we all become one when we talk about project management. And it's in my experience as this, and again, I get to travel with it, which is a lot of work too. But I went to Tanzania and I thought, what am I going to have to share at Tanzania? Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I mean, this poor country and everything they're trying to do and how engaging it was with these individuals and what they're trying to do in things that we would find simple are very complex sometimes for them, but project management was helping them achieve these in some of these countries. Yes, please.
Number 46. That's a large land mass. So does that include China and Russia in there?
Good question. We've got kind of an interesting relationship with Russia right now. Actually, after the beginning of the Ukrainian war, we've kind of put that aside. So we've still got chapters and groups there, but it's not an area that we actively work with. China, though, is a big market. So we do work actively with China. India is a very growing one. Africa, we're doing a lot of work in Africa these days. It's definitely a growing market there. And so, yeah, so I was in Africa twice. I'd never been to Africa before. I'll tell you, if you want to feel really fortunate for what you have, it's Africa. I mean, seriously. I mean, they are doing some things, but it is so hard and they've got so far to go, but they are embracing this and tying in a lot with PMI because they realize they can do projects well, they can increase their infrastructures and stuff. So, I mean, you think about the life-changing impact that this can have. Countries, not just people, but for countries is really impressive. And again, through our other organizations like PMWB Cross Borders and PMIEF, again, working worldwide. And again, that's what's really, for me, it's probably one of the most rewarding things of how we can make an impact on people and people's lives and, and through the projects and the countries around the world. It's really absolutely fascinating. So, but no, good, excellent question. Yeah, but we're politically neutral. And global organization, we don't say US based anymore. We are a global organization because, we serve the world. Thank you. Yeah, very much. I know maybe I can open it for questions if we've got time. What do you?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So, I was at a PMI Minnesota meeting, Twin Cities, kind of transitioning. They mentioned that membership rules are going to be changing in the near future.
I wouldn't say membership rules, the membership approach is changing. Yeah, so the rest of the world, I mean, don't feel left out, North America, we're saving you guys for last, but the rest of the world has moved to what we think a single membership model. And so, as you might be aware, it's like, okay, you join PMI and then you can elect to join the chapter. And they're going, really, we're all one big community. And so I'm glad you actually brought this up. So the membership model that has been rolled out for the last, I think, 3 years now is that if you join PMI, you automatically join chapter, wherever you might be located. But that also means that you can be part of any chapter in the world. So it's not just that I'm like me, I'm part of the La Crosse, Winona, La Crosse Rochester chapter here because that's where I had my my residence when I was working. But with this, I can go to chapter meetings anywhere that you might be located. They're actually moving it, and this part I don't know. Again, I apologize. I wish I knew more about it. I've just heard a little bit about it. Then they're moving to a global membership. Not sure exactly what that is, but how cool to be able to say, great. I want to connect with the Tanzania chapter because I met with them, last year. I'd love to see what they're doing, and you can have these connections because so much can be virtual. So they're really trying to have chapters instead of being standalone, being more part of PMI, and then PMI being more part of the world and global. That's maybe the best way to put it. Great question. Other questions?
Just some thank yous from online so far, and somebody asked for your LinkedIn, so I put a.
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah. Actually, I should have put that on there too. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Please though, I've still got another minute or so. Anything else you can think of? Anything that actually, maybe let me ask a question. Anything that I shared that you were totally unaware of? I mean, was some of this information new? I'd just be kind of interested. I mean, did I share some things that you didn't know?
Was really excited about that sustainability program.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna look into that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I just grabbed the standard, because you can just download it for free. And I read through it, and I thought, wow, this has, it shares with you, exactly, some things to look at. It was really cool. Yes, please.
To the sustainability, there is a certification out there,
Yes.
and if you've got your PMP, it's like very little to qualify to, that almost qualifies you
Yeah.
to take the test.
Excellent. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again. This is great. So just a couple of things in closing. We have a QR code or the link, a survey. It's very quick, 4 or 5 questions, really asking so we can get feedback to the speaker tonight on it was worth it to have Terry here. And it was, even without the survey, I thought it was. Yeah, for sure. And then if you are going to claim a PDU, here's the PDU code for you. So you can go in and just type that in and it fills in all of the information for you. So that is great. We would like to get a picture before everybody takes off. So we'll right behind the board banner there, we can get a picture so that we can post it. And then we do have a door prize giveaway. So I want Terry to give me a number between 1 and 35. And
My favorite 8.
so that is Rodney Wentland. I think that person is online, if I remember right.
It's online.
He's online. Awesome. So Rodney, I'll be in contact with you. We have a gift card, so I will contact you. And we'll get that sent to you so that you have that. So thank you again. We appreciate the collaboration between the Wisconsin and the Minnesota chapters. Hopefully we can continue that for maybe a yearly thing. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to those that were online. And we'll adjourn for the evening. Like I said, we want a photo. All right. Thanks, everyone.